the reason why I had it difficult with the history lessons, social studies, global history, whatever that stuff, is I don't think it was conveyed to me in our classes in a way that was super visual. And I think I realized I was kind of like I'm a visual learner. And what would have helped me a lot in these history classes is like as the year went on, having kind of like a running visual graphic to show like how many years apart certain events were and have the timeline separated geographically so you could see like, again, like I'm saying, while this was happening in Europe, this is what was happening in Africa, this is what was happening in Asia.
Yeah.
And to be able to put it all together that way. Because that just never, I was only imagining it so linearly that I wasn't comprehending that like while the Chinese dynasties were doing this is also what was happening in Europe at the same, because it was happening at the same time.
Right. Yeah. But for whatever reason, I mean, maybe because they didn't have a lot of interaction with each other, although I don't think that's really true.
They didn't, probably.
Yeah, but I think they must have had some, but I think maybe, you know, if they only had little interaction with each other, I could see how you would compartmentalize them and be like, this happened here, and then just like totally separately, like this other thing was happening, but like because they didn't interact, like they're not integrated.
We were taught in a compartmentalized way.
Yeah,
it was like this unit, you have this test, all the stuff that you learn in this unit, and then you go to another unit, and there's no like unit to unit like synthesis of, because we're learning about the world.
Yes, dude, this is one of my biggest gripes with history teaching is that history, the most important function of learning history is learning from the past so that we don't fail in the same ways that we did before. Like understanding the context of being able to see the way that history rhymes and how the things that we're doing now rhyme with some other time or some other situation. Like that is the most that's the reason you learn history. It's not to memorize names and dates and locations. Right. It's to learn about, how do you say? It's to learn about the way that it's about to learn about humanity, how humans are, the
rise and fall, how things come to be, like what it takes for things to come together and fall apart.
Yeah, it's about learning. It's learning about humanity at scale.
Yes. And that seems to be the thing that was missing.
Yeah,
was the grasping the scale of it, because the way it was broken down.
Yeah,
it didn't occur to me until this is probably like 2 years ago. I'm like 5 years out of high school, and I'm like, this is why I didn't grasp history as well as I could have, is because it was not portrayed to me as like a global thing that was happening. It was just piecemeal, unit by unit, era by era, area by geography area by geography area.
Yeah.
It was a big epiphany that I had. And I asked my sister about this because my sister's a teacher. So is my mom. And, I mean, I think that there's a test even too that you take at some point or throughout high school where it's like, are you a visual learner? Do you learn by reading? Do you learn by someone telling you it, like the audio?
Verbally.
You have all different learning types in a classroom. And my sister told me like, there is some incentive to like teach in, like you do kind of vary your delivery to hit all of these different ways that children learning receive information. Yep. There is an understanding of that, but I think there are like, it's each topic, or what do you call them? Each field, whether it be math, science, English, history, lends itself to a particular delivery. And some of them, history might be the most difficult to turn into a visual. Not in terms of like a picture of people doing something, but in terms of like
timelines,
a timeline,
and maps.
Yeah. Like having that. And it just didn't seem to me like, I guess, the way that I learned stuff and the teachers I had, from the way I remembered at least. I mean, they might have been doing a whole bunch of different things and I just didn't grasp it that way either. There's that too.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think like with history, and maybe that's just the way that my mind works and my preference for the way I see things. History to me is most interesting, I think, and most informative from like a systems analysis kind of level, in the way that in the way that history repeats itself, it cycles, and it's because there's kind of the same variables in the system all the time, just by different names or slightly different, shape. It's just a system that produces outcomes. And I think like learning, especially, with all the recorded history we have so many instances of like the same things happening over and over.
Yeah.
With the rise and fall of empires is like a basic example, or currency inflation issues, or issues of corruption, or there's so many things that happen throughout history that happen over and over, and we have all these examples of them. And I think by learning about them and seeing them in a way, seeing them through the lens of a system that produces outcomes based on variables which we have around today, just maybe by different names or different shapes, being able to see things in that way, I think gives you really good understanding and framework to see the world now. And I don't think that's what history teaches, unfortunately.
No, like, can we not do that? Like, can we not break it down to X's and O's and like look at it from a systems perspective to really like, and maybe this is the problem why people have so many skewed different like perspectives of like, this is because like if you look at politics now, like people have a general, people kind of all want the same things. People want the same things.
There's some base things.
The problem is the discussion is all about what are the best ways to achieve the things that we all want. Mm-hmm. And that's where you have the disagreement. And we have all this history. Why can't we break the history down systematically and say, these are the systems that provided this way of living that was super beneficial for this culture and that culture. And here's the system that came in, and here's why it came in. Because there's also a cycle too of like, capitalism turning into communism or socialism and stuff. Like it goes back and forth because like eventually like capitalism is going to break down in a certain way that makes other ways of living seem more appealing.
Yeah.
And then you go to those other things, and then all of a sudden you realize all the bad things about that, and then you go back to capitalism, you go back to this, you go back to that. Like, right, again, like you're saying it, there's cycles. Why can we not like have a math or a systems person come into a history lesson, break it down in that way, and not make it emotional, and not make it, and maybe this is the other thing too, is like, we went to school in the United States, and we have our own like United States propaganda or whatever.
Yeah,
like we're history was written by the victors, sort of thing.
Yep.
Can we make it like not emotional and break it down as like X's and O's? Here's what works. Here's what doesn't. These are the like. Maybe that's how history should be taught. Is you should begin with like, these are the qualities of life that a society aspires to. That's what it should be, because everybody can agree on those things. There's a certain list of like
there's a certain
freedoms, and accessibility and opportunity and equality. There's a certain amount of that everybody can agree is good for a society to operate. And we should break it down, and it should be taught like, here's what was done here. Maybe this is a different kind of course. Maybe this isn't really, because a history course, again, too, maybe it should be about the emotions and should be about like just maybe some sensationalization, and this is why this happened, and this was the whole thing. And like, there is kind of just like a storytelling aspect. I guess maybe that's kind of what it comes down to, is like, what is the purpose of teaching you history? That's
what I was just going to ask. What do you think currently is the purpose of history classes? Like what is their mission?
I'm starting to wonder that, because I'm not really sure that they're like delivering.
No, yeah. I mean, to me, it's just like,
it doesn't seem like it has the potential to like influence. It's not geared in a way or designed in a way to prepare us to make decisions for the future.
Yeah. And maybe it does that by accident, or, some teachers have a bit of intention they can bake in there, but I don't, to me, it just looks like, just another class, X class that you have to get X grade on to go through high school. It's just an arbitrary class.
There's no communication as to like what the gravity of the information is. Right. That's what it is.
Well, that was my whole problem with school in general. Yeah.
You need to understand the gravity.
Yes. Yeah.
Of the stuff that you're learning, and say, like, this is how it's this is why you need to learn this. Yeah. If it's math class, it could be as simple as like learning all these numbers and how they go together. We can all agree is not probably going to be directly useful for your life in the future in terms of like you're not going to be having to solve algebraic equations when you're 35. Most likely, you're not going to have to.
Yeah.
That's not the fucking point. The point is it's going to open up your brain to different ways of visualizing and thinking and different like capacity to like make to understand relationships and to put things together. Like that's the whole point of it. So you have to grind out this lesson in algebra, not for the algebra's sake, but for the sake of like opening up your mind and learning how to put 2 and 2 together in different things in an abstract way.
Right.
That's why it's important. And that's why even though you're going to go work like some trade job somewhere, you're going to be a plumber, this is important to you. If a kid understands that, then maybe they'll be a little bit more in tune to like, okay, I don't really need to like, I can accept the fact that the information I'm learning is not directly relevant to my future, and understand that in an abstract way, it is 100% relevant to my capability to contribute to society when I'm an adult.
Yeah. Yeah.
That needs to be communicated because you have so many kids. That's the problem with high school is you have so many kids just turn off and say, oh, I don't need to know this for what I'm going to do in the future. This information directly is not important to me. And that is a valid, and the reason why they're able to go along with that is because that's a valid perspective.
Right. Yeah.
It's 100% valid.
Yeah. Who's going to use trig? Who's going to use trigonometry?
Right.
I mean, like, I don't know anyone in my life who uses advanced algebra or trigonometry.
You don't.
Maybe it's just the circles that I'm in, but like, I don't know anybody.
Right.
0 people.
And that's not the point.
Right. No. Yeah. No. I mean, I think you put it really well. It's like to kind of add on to it. I mean, problems are problems. They're kind of the same thing, and I want to tie this into kind of like how me being a generalist, I think is a really has a lot of benefits. I think as a generalist, the kind of superpower of a generalist is having like, you know, dozens and dozens of different frameworks for things.
So what is a generalist?
A generalist is kind of the antithesis to a specialist. A specialist is like, you know, someone who's some kind of specific, like a brain surgeon, or a cardiac surgeon, or someone who's a finance person in a very specific, like who just does foreign exchange, like currency exchange stuff. You go very deep in a certain area of knowledge and become an expert. A generalist is someone who has a very broad range of knowledge in a broad range of topics, but is not really an expert in any one of them.
Right.
You know, they might have a specialty kind of, but they're not a top leading person in any field. The benefit of that kind of approach of having a kind of broad knowledge of a bunch of different things is that it gives you a ton of different ways to view different problems, different systems. And again, maybe this is just, you know, the way that my preference, that's what I'm drawn to, is systems thinking. But that's kind of the same thing with, you know, the reason you take an algebra class, or one of the ways you benefit from an algebra class is it gives you different frameworks to view problems through. I mean, if you're able to see a certain problem, and I can't think of an example because I don't remember algebra that well, but if you're able to see a certain problem, I guess just basically as equations, like a lot of things in life are equations. You can think about I brought up something earlier that was like an equation. I don't remember what it was now. So here's the way you can think about an equation. So something
the us or them thing.
What's that?
The us or them.
No, it was something a little later. It's about. This is an example of an equation way of thinking about something, is like you can make a comparison of your amount of worriedness for something versus how much you can actually affect about it. It's like that, you know, you can think of that as a kind of equation and make a comparison there. And like, anyway, it's mathematical. It's an example. Yeah. So, and I think having a framework like that, well, it translates. Like, problem-solving skills are generalizable. That's kind of the point that I'm getting at, is problem-solving skills are generalizable. They work in all different problems of all different kinds because problems are functionally the same thing. With most of the time, they're just there's like I was into this for a while. I was looking at what's it called? There's a field that talks about, it's not exactly this. It talks about like problems or different types of systems. It was what it was about. There's a name for the field, but it talks about different topologies of systems. Basically, like there's systems that are linear. There's systems that are non-linear. There's systems that have this kind of a shape with a central node, and there's stuff like that. But so there's a few kind of let's say archetypes of problems, right? Yes. But like once you have labeled those, like they're all just that.
Right.
And
X's and O's, A, B, C.
Yeah. Yeah. Like every problem, as complex as it is just like another problem. And the more tools you have in your toolkit to be able to analyze a problem, to be able to solve the problem, the better off you'll be. So
this is again getting to like my idea of like what education is and how our brain functions as a filter.
Okay.
Because if ideas or thoughts or perspectives are like, again, to say like to bring like the whole brain as a filter analogy into it, like you're born with a few different perforations in the filter of your brain that allow you to conceptualize like or understand different like energy and messages from the universe in different concrete ways. And the whole point of education, the whole point of high school, of going to science class and going to math class and going to social studies, even if you're someone who's going to be like in a trade or this or that, like the purpose of every single class is just adding perforations to the filter of your brain and giving you more and more ways to like, it's more tools, more.
I like the word lenses or frameworks.
To like attack a problem.
Yeah.
And so there's an abstract way or a subconscious way that's something that you learned, some sort of like investigation you did in a science class. Like the one that I think of in science that we did is like really simple test of like having a clothespin. You got a clothespin. And you and your partner was supposed to like, this is a science lab. You just had to like, squeeze the clothespin as many times as you could in a minute. Mm-hmm. And they were counting it. And then you do that. And then you stop, you take a little break, and then you go again for another minute and you count it. And eventually what you realize is that lactic acid builds up in your muscles and it slows down and you're not as much able to, you can't close the clothespin or snap it as many times in the second minute as you could in the first minute or the third minute. It gets slower and slower and slower. Yeah. And that's a dumb exercise in a way, but in an abstract way, you can begin to understand that as like, maybe you're a plumber now and you're thinking like, oh, the reason why I need to like replace this, tube or valve or this on this toilet is because it's tired out. It's been used so many times. And maybe the reason why it needs to be fixed is just the fact that it's fatigued in some way. Mm-hmm. It's just like this kind of abstract understanding of like fatigue. Like that's kind of like an example of like a parallel of like your mind was opened up to the fact that like something, because if you're a dumb baby, okay, you think that like if something can work a certain way, why should it not be able to work that way forever?
Yeah.
If it can work right now and I'm observing it,
right?
How could it possibly stop?
Yeah, but why should it diminish in its efficacy or efficiency? Yeah,
right. Yeah. It opens your mind to the fact that like something is there's like an outside force that makes something kind of wear down over time.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what it is at its base.
Right.
So again, like these teachers or maybe like high school, and I don't know, New York is a pretty good school system, but like, I think the reason why it's not reaching enough kids or enough kids are understanding the gravity of it is because like it's not conveyed, the value of the education is not conveyed to them as well as it could be. I need to talk to my sister and brother about this and my mom who are teachers. This is another thing about like I've been grappling with my I played sports, you played sports like in high school, and one of my regrets that I have is like, in playing the varsity sports JV, climbing up through like the ranks of like the sports world is, I had so many practices that I had to go to, which took up a lot of time, like after school and stuff, which prevented me from like doing other things like skateboarding or smoking weed or going to parties or like doing other things. And I kind of like questioned like, you know, because when I got into like college and stuff, I was like, did the delusion of the value of sports prevent me from hanging out with the type of people that I should have been hanging out with? Because I guess I had a friend in college who, I'm like amped right now, but I had a friend in college who didn't play sports. And what I kind of realized, like when you're like a Division I athlete or you become pro or something, like you can really climb the ranks all the way up through sports. What happens is your sport becomes your identity. And you almost don't even have to, or like if you're super hot or whatever, something like, you don't have to develop a personality because you have like this skill or something. Yeah. And so, I had these friends in college who were super interesting, and I could just hang out with them and like do nothing and watch YouTube and shoot the shit and have like super interesting, stimulating conversations with them, because it's like they were forced to develop a personality because they didn't have any like skill that was admirable in high school. And I was like, did I miss out on developing a personality? And so there's probably people who are like that, who are going up through high school and don't see the value in like trying in team handball or trying in football or trying in kickball or doing something like competitive in gym class. This is another example of like the way that the benefits of the class are marketed to someone who is in that class. And what I realized is I'm thinking like, okay, what am I gonna push my kids to do? Am I gonna push them to go through the sports? Am I gonna have them do like an instrument? Am I gonna have them do this, that? Like how do you value those things as I'm looking at the value of what I did? And what I realized is like, there are benefits to sports. It's, don't look at like the dumb jock, single personality aspect of it. Look at like there's dealing with loss. There's winning and losing.
Yes.
There's benefits from learning about winning and losing. There's teamwork.
Yes.
There's competition. There's competitive drive. Like there are aspects of gym class that are relevant and beneficial to the lives of someone who is like a dweeb or is not athletic or doesn't like see themselves as being like a varsity athlete or isn't a varsity athlete. Yeah. That's not to say that like there isn't something that you can, and there's also just the pure like health aspect of it, of like developing like all the soccer practices and stuff that I did and basketball and all this stuff. Like I developed certain muscles and a certain like metabolism that is making like me healthier. And now like I can probably be more comfortable sitting at a desk in an office than someone else who's sitting at a desk in an office, because I spent a lot of time like playing soccer. So again, it's kind of like abstracting again, like the benefit of these different classes to make it understood as being relevant to every single person in that room, because there is something relevant to every single person taking that class. Yeah. It's not, and they leave it to be something so black and white. Like, are you an athlete? Are you coordinated? Can you do this and that? And then those people get to shine and do their thing. But like, no, there is something here for you. There's something here for everybody in this room. Yeah, that's going to apply to your entire life.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is generally true. I think that the reason why that doesn't happen is because, the class sizes and the schedule of what has to be taught, and the fact that everyone has to be kind of taught at the same pace, it limits teachers' abilities to cater to a certain student. Like some student. There's a lot of, most students, almost every student is not going to be a professional athlete, right?
Of course not, no.
And there's a lot of students that like might not have, like, for whatever reason, someone could have like, an amputated leg or something, right? And they're not going to have like, or some other significant issue where like they're not going to have a very active life for whatever reason, physically, athletic, active life. But like you're saying, there's still things you can abstract out of there, like teamwork, communication, working hard at something. I guess what I'm saying is I agree that those benefits do exist, and it would be great if they were taught. I think the reason that they don't, though, is just because I mean, how can a teacher that has 20 students to teach and everything's on such a tight schedule and such a fast
Yeah.
schedule, like how can you do that? I just don't think you can, at least with the way that school is set up right
Maybe
now.
not, because there's also just like sometimes, I mean, yeah, you have these kids that are also like dealing with like difficult lives at home or something, and like going to school and having the routine of school sometimes is just like a respite in itself, and they just want to like have some different like human interaction, or like have like you know, there's teachers that give special accommodations to some students and just say like, hey, it's okay if you just want to like hang out or sit in the bleachers and not participate in gym, because you're just like here and you're like, you know, it's good that you're here and we're happy about that.
Right.
There's those like, yeah, personal relationship things that are definitely important to be addressed too. My sister teaches second grade, and she has like a whole lesson plan and stuff that she has to like get through. And it's like, sometimes you just got to like talk to the kids and communicate with the kids and just deal with them at like an interpersonal level and not like at a educational or like a
curriculum
a curriculum level. Yeah, so there's that too, but I think it's got to come from like, there's got to be like another push. I know New York has done a lot of like different, there's a lot of, I don't know, like we had this thing called like Common Core. You remember Common Core? There's all these different like, there's always a new like top down sort of like restructuring of like how we're going to go at education.
It was federal, wasn't it? Common Core, was that federal?
It might have been.
I feel like it was, but
I don't know.
Now that I'm thinking about it, now that you say it,
I guess the one that like we're coming up with here though is just this one of like giving the teachers, because that's the thing too, is like you have all teachers of all different capabilities and stuff. These are not like philosophical, intellectual, like they're people that are coming with their own different like specializations that are coming to this because they just love science and they just want to talk about science and do science experiments. But like there needs to be, I think, or it would be helpful if there was like some sort of top down, like, and fucking, I hate the whole top. I'm like a small government like kind of person. I hate like the top down thing, but like,
it generally doesn't work. Unfortunately,
it doesn't.
Top
but
down.
like, I think it'd be so useful if these teachers just had like a little like sheet, a piece of paper, a bulleted list that they could like start each curriculum with, just to like speak to the kids who are having trouble understanding what the purpose is for them being in that classroom. What do they have to benefit? I think so many kids in high school just like are in these classrooms and they're like, there's nothing for me here.
Yeah, true.
Something that each teacher could have to begin to communicate to those kids and say, there is something for you here.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Because like the problem that I was pointing out is that, you know, teachers basically, it's impossible for them to really cater to every student. But I think at the very least, I mean, that's like such a small, in terms of time cost intervention to make at the beginning of the year. Like, hey, here's an incentive to pay attention and to focus and to really take this seriously.
Right. It's not a whole curriculum thing. It's just initial. There's something for you here.
Yeah.
I had this like little form of like therapy that I went through at the architecture firm that I work for. They put all the new hires through this thing called like emergent training, which is like where you learn how to like be like a leader or something. And you have these like group sessions where you learn about like what teamwork is, how to interact in the office. Really, really great program. And another thing they have in the program is like this guy that's teaching the class also does monthly one-on-ones with you for like 6 months, where he just asks you 1v1, like, you know, how's stuff going at work? How are you dealing with like these like relationships? How are you navigating like, you know, integrating with this culture and stuff? Like, what are you experiencing? What's difficult? What's easy? This, that. Yeah. I loved those conversations. And one of the things that I kind of expressed to him that I was having a difficult problem with is, I have this thing where like when I'm talking to people a lot of the time, like they'll start talking and I'll get bored with what they're saying and I'll start having like my own like inner monologue and stuff in my head, and I'll kind of tune them out because I'm like, this is not beneficial to me. It's not interesting. I've got more interesting things to think about, whatever. And I knew that was a problem because I was disengaging with like the present moment with that person. And he just gave me this super simple framework to think about. And he says, all you got to do when you feel yourself kind of drifting from the conversation, here's what you say to yourself. And I think maybe he came up with this on the fly. I don't know. He's a great guy. He said, say to yourself, there's gold in here. somewhere in this conversation is gold. And you have to be smart enough to find it. And you're not going to find it by thinking and drifting off and having your own inner monologue. You're going to find it by engaging. And if you engage with this person, there's gold in this conversation. And dude, that one little thing that I could say to myself changed my world. And now I'm listening to these people, I'm talking to these people, and and I feel myself drifting, and I'm like, wait, there's gold in here. And that did it for me. So yeah, to like, maybe that's what it is, to tell these like students, like, there's some gold in here for you.
Yep. Yeah, and I like the way that's phrased. It's a phrase as a challenge to yourself.
Yes.
It puts
To
the
find
onus,
the gold.
Yeah, it puts the onus on you, and it not only does it put the onus on you, it puts the control in your hands. It's you know, this is kind of analogous to like, you know, the dichotomy of, you know, all of your life problems are your fault, which is like in one sense like horrible, because it's like damn, I'm responsible for everything bad that's ever happened to me. On the other hand, it's great because it's like you can solve all your problems.
Heck yeah.
It's like you have the power to do it. So yeah, I love the way that's phrased. And I think for students, like, I think that would be a huge benefit to get them to engage. Because that was like the biggest problem for me. And I mean, I'm not unique in this sense. Everyone kind of had this thing of, I mean, like, when are we ever going to use this?
Yeah.
You know,
That's the whole thing.
It's like the meme of high school. It's like, when are we ever going to use it? And even the teachers are like, yeah, like probably not. I mean, they don't even believe in it.
They don't.
You know, I think that viewpoint, that perspective of, even if it's not the literal substance of the curriculum, something in here, so whether it's some kind of framework for thinking about something or some character trait that you can develop through your pursuit of this knowledge in this area, can be beneficial to you. I think putting that forward to students, I think if that were phrased to me in the right way, and I was really made to understand that, I would have worked a lot harder in school.
Right. So many people. Yeah.
And not that, like, I think that's an important thing for school's sake. I think just any time that you're not working hard, when, like, if I have this kind of rule for myself, which is like, don't do anything half-assed.
Right.
Like, if you're going to do something, do it all the way.
Right.
Otherwise, you're just wasting time. Like if you're not so fired up and motivated about something, like if there's something that you're doing that you're just kind of going through the motions, you're not really excited about, so you're kind of doing it halfway, you're only putting half the effort, you're kind of making half progress, right? Like, think about the scope of your productivity, right? It's half, okay? And think about something that you're fucking jazzed and just like super excited about, dude. You're going to be working at 110% capacity, and like, that's what you should be doing. Is you should be focused on like maximizing that internal motivation to really pursue something and to just maximize your potential. I'm big on that. But going back to the school part, yeah, I guess it's analogous to that.
Right, because the trick in high school is like convincing students that there is a valid reason to give that effort to this thing that you think is going to be insignificant to your life later on.
Yeah, and that's what I think I lacked in school, was that perspective that something would come from a lot of these classes. And so, you know, sure, for the sake of getting good grades and having a better resume, that'd be great. But I think if I'd worked harder in school because of that, but I think also if I'd worked harder in school, my actual life and my development would be a lot further along.
Yeah.
You know?
In an abstract way.
Yes. I mean, like fuck the grades. I don't really, you know, I don't use my grades for anything. But like the progress that I made as a person in, you know, developing these frameworks or developing my interpersonal skills, or, you know, my capacity to work hard at something even. I mean, that's a pretty basic thing that I think people need to develop.
Yeah.
If I had been really motivated by an understanding of the way that the classes would benefit me, I would have worked a lot harder and I got a lot more out of it.
Yeah.
So that's what we should do. We should go in every school and say, listen, this is Michael's rules of engaging with school.
Maybe. We might get to that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about, this is like our 9th official like recording.
Uh-huh.
And the number 9 is not nine's my number.
Okay,
That's
really?
like I don't want to call it like a lucky number. It's just like
It's
for whatever
your
reason,
number.
it's like the number that like has spoken to me. It's a number that I've like had like an affinity for. Something about the number 9. I that was my jersey number when I played soccer. 9 has always been like super important. It's like the symbolically, it's like the Buddhist or something number of like completion. It's like it's the highest whole number, or no, it's the highest single digit
Yeah, yeah.
number, and I think there was another thing I wanted to say about 9 that I'm losing the
That
thread
relates
on.
to you, or
But I've had this like kind of experience. Yeah, there's another thing I wanted to say before I like get into this.
about how 9 relates to you, or how it relates to this episode, or
Yeah, I mean, so I've had this like thing. I'm trying to remember what the damn. I lost one thing, but 9 for me has been like, I had this problem with like reading after like reading books, Stephen King books, or like even like maybe you like watching movies. Like there's these like this like symbolism and like motifs, foreshadowing, that you have in these things that like you what I guess foreshadowing is, or what a motif is in literature or in a movie, is like this seemingly insignificant event that actually has a profound relationship to a larger, more significant event that happens later on. That kind of like it indicates the possibility of something happening, or communicates like why something happens a certain way, or what it means to you, what the grand kind of message is. And I've kind of had this experience a little bit with like the number 9 for me. Before I even knew it was a symbol of like the beginning and the end, it was already popping up in my life. And I have like this strange list on my phone of all these different events where like the number 9 became like significant. One of the ones, there's so many of them, of when like the number 9 popped up. I guess I just want to ask, like, I don't know, do you find yourself doing that? Like looking at like think arbitrary or coincidental things in your life and think that they're like communicating some larger message to you? Do you have that experience? Like signs, I guess I could call it like
yeah,
signs. You have
yeah, yeah,
signs. Yeah.
yeah. I forget if I mentioned this on here before, but I grew up religious, and I think, until I was, I think, like 10th grade or something. And I think during that time I probably would see things through that lens. After that, I didn't really. I think I would actively try not to, because I think after that experience of being religious and having that be such a foundational part of my, life and belief system, and then having that stripped away, I was very careful to ever believe something without grounds. You know,
Which is what a motif is, or symbolism is almost like believing in something without there really being any grounds.
could be, yeah. I mean, yeah. I guess that's the way that I'm interpreting like signs.
Right.
Like a sign of something, like, the kind of stereotypical ways people talk about, like, what's an example of like a sign? Michael's running away again.
Any more zins?
Yeah, dude, you gotta keep lit, dude. Like signs are like, like someone will have this like I'm thinking of like some like stereotypical like I don't know like hippie girl or something or, like who will see like the same car her ex-boyfriend had and be like I should like call him or something.
Oh, dude, I do that. I do that.
Yeah. That's
every time I see a freaking white Mazda, I'm like, I should call her.
yeah. Well, no.
To this day.
Okay, yeah.
Like it's a sign. It's like driving behind me.
Yeah,
I'm
so
on my way to work and like this white Mazda just like driving behind me. I'm like, do I call her?
Yeah. No, so there's a difference. There's a difference there a distinction that I'll make. I think there's like triggers that'll make us feel like, oh, like I like it. I think there's a difference between seeing, the car of your ex, and being like, damn, like I miss them. Like should I reach out? Like considering like should I reach out to them? Right? There's a difference between that. It's like a trigger or a prompt. There's a difference between that and being like, oh, the universe is telling me that I should reach out to them. That I think I don't really believe it. But what I'll say, so I was kind of going in a line there from, my kind of religious upbringing where I think I did have some of that, to post that where I was very skeptical of anything that I didn't have solid grounds to believe. I wouldn't hold as a foundational thing or really a guiding, something that would guide me. But I think recently, and maybe this has also always been there kind of nascent, but I think more recently, I think I've noticed playing with this idea of like everything is kind of like a test.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I even worry about a bit.
I'm so stoked to talk about this.
I worry about a bit, to be honest, because I see that as a slippery slope. As soon as you start to deny reality and start to believe the reality in your head more than the external reality, I think that it becomes a slippery slope where you start to build your own reality that becomes out of sync with reality.
What? Okay.
And I think that's dangerous because then you're gonna walk into a hole that you don't see.
I agree with that, but I think that the fact that you're able to see something as a test means it is a test because you are acknowledging the fact that it is a sign that you have something to deal with or overcome, and this is your opportunity to do that. So this is still reality. It's a sign, but it's coming from inside you as like, this is an opportunity for me to re-engage with this thing that I'm dealing with inside myself.
I see what you mean. Yeah. So like framing it as a test of like, this is as an opportunity.
It is a test.
Yeah. It's an opportunity to engage with something to prove yourself to, yeah. I mean, like it's the difference between, I think that is functional. And this is where I invoke, Jordan Peterson. He had these debates with Sam Harris forever ago that we might have talked about that were like honestly very difficult to watch and listen to because they were debating the idea of truth, like what is truth. And long story short, Jordan's idea of truth was that truth is basically something. So like what's important is that something is functional. Like the idea of like literal truth is not really the important thing. So like, I guess I'm invoking that kind of idea here is like, is it literally true that it's a test in like a cosmic sense or like that some, entity is watching over me or there's some guys in alien lab coats who are watching me.
I believe in that.
Yeah. Well, I don't believe in that, but like, is it literally true? I don't believe that it is, but in that way they're talking about, like viewing it through that lens, I think is very functional. And I think in that sense, it's fair to say that it is truly a test. Right.
Because you're only able to perceive that it's a test because you're aware somewhere that this is something that you have to deal with. That is like, it's like an adversarial challenge for you personally. Like you can only see that it's a test because you know that it's already something that you've been dealing with. Otherwise you wouldn't perceive it as a test. So it's coming from within you.
Yeah, I mean,
or like these signs that you're seeing, or whatever that you're dealing with. Like you would only see it as a sign if it's something that you've already been thinking about. Or
right? Yeah, you're prompted.
So like the universe is like all these different things are happening to you, and you are going to perceive some of them as tests because it's relevant to the things that you've been thinking about and dealing with. It is a test, but it's like you're choosing or selecting or being aware of these particular ones because it's something you're dealing with. So in that sense, like the universe is putting all different things into your like day-to-day experience. You have all these things coming in, and you're not perceiving all of them as tests. You're only perceiving the ones as tests that are tests, and you know they're tests because it's something that you're like, this occurred to me with two different people in my life, that this was a thing. Cause I also do believe, and this is beyond like what you're thinking, that I do think that there is this tendency for the universe to, continually, like in a really, it's really interesting how it works out, but like certain people, like if you have this perceived test or something, that whatever coincidental situation that is this test for you, you're going to encounter that more times than the average person until you overcome it.
Yeah.
And that's the universe. That's like God. That's the energy. Like there is some will for something to like see you overcome this thing that you have to overcome.
I would just say though, I would say that that's, what is that? It's not confirmation bias, or it's kind of like recency bias, but there's a word for it where like as soon as you know about a thing, you see it more often.
Right.
It's like 6-7. We both become addicted to 6-7
Right.
now, which is great because we're
6-7.
We're 11-year-old TikTokers, which is awesome.
Yes.
But yeah, like once you know about a thing, you see it around more
So
frequently.
I'm agreeing with that,
Okay.
but I think
Do you
that
think there's aliens in lab coats?
yeah, in a way. No. This is like the energy of the universe.
Okay.
This is the will. Like there is. So like one of the things that this is like is really funny. I have a friend whose dad, who is friends with my dad. We've gone on like skiing trips and stuff. We've done different things, and he has like he's a very he's on top of it. He's got his life in order. It looks like he's very intelligent. Ordered, polite, civil, and he holds himself to like a high esteem. He's got things kind of like, he lives in an admirable way. And he's cognizant of he's very what do you call it when you're like accommodating to other people, or like you're he's very like aware of the situation,
agreeable. Okay.
Yeah, and he's very, very aware. And there's this really funny thing that happens as I've been out in public with him like numerous times as I'm hanging out with like my friend. This is when I was younger, my dad, my friend's dad, and my friend and I. And these like crazy situations that I don't see happen to other people would very frequently happen to my friend's dad. And it's this kind of situation where it's basically a blameless situation. It's an accidental situation where somebody, like for example, the one that really sticks in my mind is my friend's dad has this like, he's a really good photographer. And we were like on like some ski trip at the top of the mountain taking a photo, and he gets out a camera and he's like lining up a photo of us, and some like oblivious passerby, whatever, just like comes up and is like talking to their friends or having a good time. And as my friend's dad is lining up the shot, this passerby just like knocks into him, just a little bump, and like knocks a shot. And the hilarious thing about it to me is this person is like in a way kind of blameless. Like they were being a little bit oblivious, but overall, like what they did is not that, it's not that like offensive of like
A transgression.
Transgression. That's the word I was looking for. It's not a super offensive transgression. And yet at the same time, this is the type of transgression that totally infuriates my friend's dad. Because he would never do something like that, because he's so aware of everybody and he's cognizant.
Yep.
And he's like aware of the situation. And so the funny thing about the situation is he can't get mad at that person, or he can't really blame them. Because in a way, it's like an oblivious kind of mistake.
It's just a harmless like accident, a blameless thing.
Yes. And I've seen this sort of thing happen to him so many times where I'm like, I know that he is like infuriated because he would never do that because of how aware he is. And yet he has to like deal with someone else. It's like he has to kind of like come down from his high horse a little bit and like accept the fact that like, maybe it's like a lesson for him. Like he doesn't need to hold himself to as high of a position of like awareness or cognizance or like, accommodation because other people are not doing that and it's okay. It's like some sort of like lesson for him to learn that like he needs to like not be so uptight and let some stuff kind of go.
Yeah.
And I've seen this thing happen to him so many times. It's just like hilarious to me because I'm like, I don't see these like, because ultimately what it is, it's a blameless event. And these sort of blameless transgressions, I don't see happen to other people as much as I've seen happen to him in the small amount of time I spent with him, which is just hilarious to me.
Here, this is my favorite thing to do is when people bring up a thing which they think like some perspective on something. I like to try to explain it away. It's my favorite thing to do.
Hell yeah.
So, to me, I think a potential bias or confounding variable or factor in there is here. I'll posit a possible scenario.
Yeah.
Which is that, or a possible explanation, which is that these things happen. These kind of like blameless transgressions happen all the time to everybody with roughly the same frequency, but you don't notice them because they don't have a freak out about it. Right. I mean, so I guess, and this is the difference between like a metaphorical truth and literal truth. I'm taking it literally. Like, are you literally saying that it happens to him more?
Or do I only notice it because I know that he's the kind of person that would be especially infuriated by it?
Right. And also, I mean, the other point there is like, is that even important? Like, is it important if it's literally true or not? Like for this situation, I think, I don't think it is. I don't think it's important if it's literally true, if he's encountering it more and if he should take it as a sign. I think it's like, if it's the fact of the matter is he's having this thing that he's struggling with, which it sounds like is probably an overreaction and is, detriment to his life. Like whether it's a sign from the universe or not, like, yeah, take it as a test, take it as a sign, and like focus on it and work on it. It doesn't matter if it's literally a sign or not. Like take it as a challenge, take it as a test, even if it's only in a metaphorical sense that that's true, and use that to make it better. So I guess I did an explanation that I think is literally true, but then kind of realized like, it doesn't fucking matter if it's literally true or not, really.
Yeah.
I mean, unless that's the discussion that we're having.
As a test because it's relevant to the issues that you're like dealing with.
Yeah. Like, go ahead and perceive it that way. The only reason that I think I care about that is, and it's funny as you were describing it, I was thinking about kind of the perspective, looking back on my views and the way that I would usually engage in in a conversation about these kind of things. I'd be much quicker to kind of explain away things in kind of the literalist kind of viewpoint, which I ended up doing anyway. So I guess I haven't fully changed, but I think there was a point we were talking about it where I noted like, this is something that I would like, this is a point where I would have spoken out and been like, okay, but no, it's this, right? And so, and for whatever reason, I think I've become more okay with that. And I as I was thinking about it, I wonder if it's kind of, I think, an acceptance of like, maybe it's not important what's literally true in most cases. It's just about what's functional. Unless we're having some esoteric conversation about philosophy or like what literally is. Like if the topic of the conversation is something literally true, sure. But like for the most part, someone wants to believe something's a test. If it works well for your life, like I'm kind of, I think, more okay with that and less primed to tear that down than I used to.
You don't need to. Yeah, you don't really need to overanalyze it. Like it's just. Yeah.
Like because I've, for whatever reason, I don't know when or why this change happened, but I think I've been thinking a lot more in those frameworks recently, like over the past couple years, especially maybe last year. And dude, this is a whole thing I'd love to get into. We've been recording for like 3 hours, but I'll
let's
bring
do it. Let's do it.
We'll do this will be a 6-hour episode. This is the marathon.
Yeah.
24-hour episode. What was I going to say? I don't know how to pronounce his name. The Michael
Sergey. We'll say Sergey.
Yeah, Michael Sergey. I gotta
look it up so we can say it correctly.
Yeah, poor guy. We've been mispronouncing his name for like 3 weeks. But he's got these lectures on religion and its effect on Western culture and society. And I've been seeing, I think more than ever through these lectures, the way that, and maybe this is intentional in the way that he is conveying the information, or maybe I'm just picking it up, but I've been really seeing the analogy between God and just kind of like reality or the universe, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so many passages of him talking where he's explaining events that happen and that are described in the Bible, and then the meaning behind them, and how they guided society during that time or whatever. So something around. I mean, there's basic stories of a civilization strays away from their covenant to God, and God sends in some kind of thing that destroys their civilization, right? And like one way to think about that is like that there's a deity in the sky that cares about what you're doing and wants you to do what he said and is mad, and so he sends in a flood or whatever and collapses all your buildings, right? Another way to think about that is there are better and worse ways to operate as an individual, and the way that influences a society. There are better and worse ways to act. And if you act in the wrong ways, your society will get to a point where it can't withstand a flood.
Right.
Or it'll get to a point where people are the society becomes so corrupt that it can't stand anymore. It just falls apart. It just falls to shambles, right? So there's all these stories about...
Or if you're feeling guilty about doing something, you're going to perceive the preceding events as punishment.
That too. Right. Yeah.
You would only perceive it as punishment if you think that something you were doing before was wrong.
Right. Yeah. So point being, with the kind of relationship between God and just the universe is, or reality, I think is maybe the more precise word to use here, is like the reality is if a society neglects its, let's say, principles, if a society neglects the principles which are required to uphold society, something will come to destroy the society. Mm-hmm. Whether that's external or it's internal or it's both.
Right.
That's just reality.
Yes.
And that sounds a lot like God sending a flood or sending some kind of disaster to tear things apart. When a society is sinning.
Right.
And I'm like, damn, dude.
It's amazing.
That's been such a cool experience, dude.
I love how practically he breaks everything down.
Yes.
It's like, it's not religious. Mm-hmm. And yet, like you're saying, you're able to see, quote unquote, God in everything.
Yeah.
Oh, God, it's amazing, dude.
Oh, it's been so good, dude. Yeah.
I'm jealous that you're further along than I, because I think I've maybe made it through like 4. I listened to like the last or second to last one, and like the first 3
I
or
might
4.
be around there. I think I'm around there.
I remember what I was going to say about the number 9.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which I feel like this is kind of like a really dumb thing to kind of bring it back to.
No, it's a smart thing to bring it back to.
But thank you.
Yeah.
This is really dumb. The reason why I got on the number 9 in the first place is because, man, Michael Sir, we gotta dig in more.
We'll discuss that in a different episode.
Yeah.
I could go on for 2 hours about that.
I first started liking the number 9 because I was playing, I think maybe this is when I first got a Nintendo DS, and I lived around all my cousins growing up, and we were like hanging out after swimming in the pool at my grandparents'. We were like sitting on like the swings playing Nintendo DS download. My cousin had FIFA '08. And this is like the Real Madrid team with like Ronaldo and Kaká and Pepe, this like star-studded lineup of a soccer team. And I would like play DS download against my cousin, and I could never beat him. And the only team that I could beat him with was on FIFA '08, the Barcelona team with Messi and their star striker Samuel Eto'o, who was number 9. And he scored all my goals. And I started scoring all the goals with Samuel Eto'o, number 9, and I'd score the goal, and his name would flash on the screen, and I would see that 9 there, and I would get so stoked. I'm like, 9, like, fuck yeah, like, that's my guy.
Yeah.
Whatever. So that's where it started. I was like, 9 is my number. And that's why I started wearing that when I was playing.
Yeah.
But then I was pulling up the list on my phone of, so in my 5th year thesis, that was when I was digging into like the numerology, like the symbolic meaning of like all the numbers.
Yeah.
But the crazy thing is I started developing this list. I wrote this down before I started getting into, this is before numerology. So this is like a dum-dum who is like perceiving symbolic meaning in things before understanding that there is literal symbolic meaning in things, which reinforces the fact that there probably is. And I started this note list on my phone called 9 means the end. So I had an OCD rationalization. I was trying to come to terms with this was my in limbo. I took a semester off of college in my 4th year because of COVID. I stopped because this is when I was supposed to go to Europe.
Yeah.
Wow, we might have to post the whole 3-hour conversation because this is like full circle back to where we started like 3 hours ago. We're going back to COVID again, and I was supposed to go to Europe. Didn't happen. Went home. And they promised us that we would actually go to Europe the following summer. And so there was no sense in me going to college in the fall of my 4th year because I was going to be doing a semester in the spring and then a semester in the summer. So spring, summer would be my 2 semesters of 4th year. So I took the fall off. I worked a construction job. And it was getting into December. I was doing the job. I started to like really hate it. And I saw like the finish line was in sight, and I was telling people around the construction site that this is my last week. And when you're like some like, privileged like white boy driving like one of the nicer cars on the lot at the construction site because it's a different class of people that are doing like this construction job at 50 years old, they kind of get the sense that like, oh, you're a college kid. You just talk to these people as you're like on the job site and they know your story. And there's a little bit of like, there's like banter, stuff that goes on the construction site, whatever. And the banter and I got along with these guys well, and I developed some like pretty good connections, but I knew like there was still some distance because I was not in the same life as them. I was kind of like a transient person who's just dropping in on their lives because this is like a job I need to get paid for a time being. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going back to like my middle class, college education, lifestyle, whatever. Yeah. And so as I'm approaching like this last like week or 2 of the job, I had to put in like my time, and people knew like my last day was coming up, and maybe that was on me a little bit for like telling them that it was. And basically my last day was going to be Friday, December 11th was my predetermined announced last day of working on the job, Friday the 11th. And I really started to and I had some other kind of like, altercations with like one of the people on the job site that was like actually making me a little bit uncomfortable and stuff. And it got to the point where I was like, I don't really know if I want to, I don't want to continue working this job. I'm thinking this as I'm driving home on Wednesday, the 9th. And being raised the way that I was raised and thinking about like, principle and living up to your, being a man of your word and all these things. I'm like, I told my boss and these guys, like I'm working all the way through the 11th. I really do not want to go back to work these last couple days. I don't like, who knows what's going to happen on my final day? Like, am I going to get bullied? Like I was worried about like these kind of like things of like what these guys are, going to think or whatever. And I was feeling bad about that. And I'm driving home on the 9th and I'm trying to rationalize like, will I be able to live with myself for the rest of my life if I don't live up to my word in this situation and I quit this job? Because I want to quit so bad today, Wednesday the 9th. I want to quit so bad. But I told them I would stay till the 11th. And I'm like, I really don't want to go back to work, but I want to live up to my word. I'm grappling as I'm driving home. I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to rationalize, and I'm trying to like with my OCD brain that I've developed through architecture school, I'm trying to be like, when I was the OCD started, I think, when I was in 11th grade, and I was like walking out of like my social studies classroom, and I was like the last kid out of the room, and I turned around and looked, and I saw that like I didn't push my chair in. And I had this opportunity where like it was only me and the teacher in the room because everyone else had left. And I'm like 2 feet away from walking out the door. And I look back and I see my chair not pushed in. And I'm like, okay, I could walk back and push my chair in, but I'm a fucking crazy person if I do that. And do I want to be like exposed as a crazy person? Like, do I want my teacher to see me walk back all the way across the room to just push my chair in and then walk out? And I was like, no. So I walked out. And I haven't stopped thinking about that. The fact that I didn't push my chair in on that day. I have not stopped thinking about it. And that's where my OCD started. It was like, I want to be as present in the moment as I can be without being haunted by these other things that are out of place that I haven't like taken care of, So that's where the OCD comes from. It's like everything has to be in place for me to be like, that's why I freaking wash the dishes before we do this podcast. Cause I'm like, some part of my subconscious is going to be thinking about the dishes while we're talking, and I want to be 100% present. So everything has to be in its place when I am in a position to like relax or focus or whatever. Okay. So fast forward again back to the moment where like I'm driving home in the car, I'm trying to rationalize, do I work the next couple days? Do I not work the next couple days? And the rationale that I finally came to, I had to have some sort of like symbolic backing for, I don't know why this occurred to me. And I just told myself, this is what I literally said as I'm thinking. I'm like, 9 means the end. For the rest of my life, the number 9 is going to be symbolic of an ending. This is before any education of numerology. It was just, I was driving home on Wednesday the 9th, and I said, 9 is the end. I said it out loud. I called my boss the next second, and I said, hey, yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity. It was a pleasure working with you guys. I'm done. I'm not working the next couple days. And he said, okay. And I hung up. And I drove the rest of the way home, and I never went back to that job. And that's kind of when it became solidified that I realized 9 means the end. And now I have this list on my phone here that's like 15 bullet points long that I could go through of all these other like subsequent times in my life where some weird way the number 9 has flashed, either like on the back of a car or a certain date where a significant event has happened, or any sort of like a counting of things. It's just flashed up and up again and again and again. And I'm like, okay. Like that's like a solidified thing for me now.
Yeah. You know what that reminds me of as a function? I think this is a common situation for everybody where we have a decision to make. We're really caught between, let's say, 2 things. We either do this or we do this. And we can't decide. But we know what the right one is. And we just need something to be the coin flip. Mm-hmm. Like it's not a question of, or rather to be the coin flip. Rather than that, we need something to be the sign. We need something that tells us that it's okay to make that decision, or that gives us that there needs to be some sign. I think what that is we're caught between 2 things. Should I do this or this? And what I mean is like you know what you should do. The reason you don't make the decision is because it's an impossible decision to make. It's just, for whatever reason, it's just such a hard thing to admit. The decision that you know is true is the way to do it. Is the decision to make. And I think having a sign like that is the thing that's useful in those situations. When you see the sign, you're like, I know what the right thing is. And then you can do it. Because it, and, again, I could invoke is that literally true thing, but it's like, it doesn't matter. You're stuck in a spot where you know what the right thing to do is, and you're stuck because it's just a hard decision to make. And so, having a thing that tells you yes allows you to make the decision. So I think that works as a functional thing. Does that resonate?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking about it like this, and I'm like, I mean, the quote unquote like right thing to do probably would have been to finish out the job and to work the last couple days. So maybe what I was doing was like maybe, and I was like, do you think so though? I don't know. That's the thing. Is like I don't know if it was Like if right was part of it, literally was a 50-50. And I was frozen.
Yeah.
And I had an hour in the car driving home to think about it. Do you have a thing like that? Do you have like a thing that you go, like where do you go when you have like a 50-50 or like you don't know, like you have two rights or two wrongs and you have to like decide between them? Like, how do you make that decision?
I can't even think of a situation that's. I'm trying to think of a. I don't really know. I don't have anything like that. If that's what you're asking, I don't have like a sign thing. But I mean, going back to that because partially because I can't think of one, but also because I wanted to say this about the quitting the job 2 days early thing. I think if the right thing to do is this true? Let's see.
Say it and then you can take it back.
Yeah. I think I don't think you would have come up with a rationalization if it wasn't the right thing to do. And I don't mean that in some woo-woo kind of like destiny sense. I mean that in the sense of like, I don't know if it's a combination of things that I think makes me say that. One is, I think, intuition. You had some intuition that the norm would have been to go back to work, right? Like,
Yeah.
But you were having these conflicts. And I think in some sense, I put a lot of trust in people's intuitions. I don't think people do a good job of accessing or listening to them, but I do think that intuition is a very, very powerful module of our mind. So I guess what I'm kind of saying is I don't think you would have been pondering it or searching so hard for a rationalization if it weren't the right thing to do, because your gut knew what the right thing to do was. And it made you fight to find that reason to do what it knew that it should do.
Right. So yeah, the problem was the war was between intuition and principle.
Yeah.
My intuition told me quit. Principle told me see it through.
Yeah.
And that was the big problem. I think that's when you have intuition and principle at odds, holy fuck.
Yeah.
Those should not be at odds.
They should not be at odds.
Principle and intuition should not be at odds, because intuition probably gets into moral.
I'm thinking in this case, I'm thinking about intuition as if you're worried about your like maybe I'm ascribing something to you that you're not saying. It sounds like you were saying something about you were worried about like, your physical safety. You did say that, right? You did say you were worried about your physical safety.
Yeah.
Right. So like
That was my intuition saying that.
Yeah. I think that's.
But principle says, and my dad would say, and like being a man of your word would say, see it through.
Yeah.
Wow. Maybe that's like the title for this one. What it all comes down to is like principle versus intuition. Is that what we're seeing? To loop back into like the politics and like and media and the divide in our country and Gaza and war and all that is like is the gray area this kind of like pinballing between intuition and principle?
I don't know. Explain. I don't know how you're seeing it.
Well, I mean, I don't want to like open up the whole freaking like stuff that we're dealing with and with politics and with like the media and stuff and the information that we're receiving now, but like it just seems like, I mean, you have these like core moral views or like these intuitions of like what's right and wrong or things like the gut sense of like how things make you feel. And at the same time, you have like certain like, I don't know, universal principles or like ideological principles that are so black and white.
Yeah.
That you have to like adhere to. And yet there's like these outside factors or like these other variables, which is the nature of like foreign policy, where you just have these like, and that's what I think people maybe also discount a little bit, is like the number of variables that go into these decisions that are made on a global scale that are then conveyed to us as like a black and white decision. Like, I don't think that the people who are getting super wrapped up in like some emotional or black and white kind of yes or no, this side or that side, are not opening their minds to the number of variables that are leading to the decisions and the consequences and things that are being made, and like the bigger picture, the real bigger picture, which is like so incredibly complex. I mean, one of the things with like, and we're going to fade it out there, so this is not probably part of the episode, but like the Epstein Files and the release of that. I was talking to somebody about, someone who voted for Trump and wanted the Epstein Files to be released and doesn't understand why they're not being released. One of the kind of devil's advocate things that I kind of posed for why potentially there would be an understanding in someone who wanted to initially release them would then change their mind and go to a position of not releasing them, would be potentially, this is again devil's advocate, that they were made to understand that the release of those files would incarcerate a certain number of people who are in prominent, influential, organizational, societal positions that are in charge of companies that are, have like, that support like the jobs of like millions of people, or like, like the delivery of food to different places, or like are just like the disruption would be at such a large scale.
Yeah.
And the people that are doing horrible things are also doing things that are so critically important to the structure of the society of the globe, that to upend that could potentially throw the entire globe into, who knows, maybe some complete disarray.
Yeah.
It's just too large of a scale and too big of a network to upend, that like you don't have people that are capable to rise to these positions, that people like it would be an entirely new network that you couldn't even possibly introduce this leader to that leader to that leader to that CEO.
Right.
You couldn't rebuild that network overnight if overnight all of these people were just put in jail.
Of course. Yeah. Right.
I'm not saying that that's the truth. I'm just saying that that's a
if
potential...
that's the situation, then that's the case. I mean, you couldn't just replace...
Right. So that would be an argument that someone could give to another person who says, let's release the files and incarcerate all these people. And someone could say, well, let's think about the grand consequences of what potentially could happen if you do that. That's the devil's advocate position for why someone might, again, go against principle. That's intuition over principle.
Well, I mean, to me, what that is to me is it's maybe not exactly this, but it's less intuition versus principle, and it's like principle versus principle.
Yeah.
Like there's, and maybe that's stretching the term of principle, but if there's, it's value versus value, I think is a better way to put it. Like there's the value. I don't mean value in like putting a dollar sign. I mean value as in like honesty is a value or freedom is a value. So like, the prospering of people in society, and things being in, not in chaos, in some sense of order and safety, is a value. That's something that we want to have happen and that we want to have. There's also a value in, it's maybe justice, let's say broadly. Like we think the people who do the wrong things should be brought to justice, or at least prevented from doing the bad things that they're doing. And those are two values which, in this possible scenario that you're laying out, are at odds with each other. And I think that it's a common thing. And I think that's the way that I see society is like, it's kind of a machine that is, its function is to converse and to solve those problems, because no one person can analyze all the facts, all the information, and come to the right conclusion on their own. I mean, I think is that literally true? No, but it's one of those metaphorically true things, and I think it's a functional principle. Like, no one person can be God and can make all the kingly decisions. It requires a kind of neural network of people, ideally who are communicating with each other, in a good faith way and discussing what the facts are and kind of averaging out in a way, like getting to the truth by discussing and by coming at it from different angles. That's the job of a society.